let's talk about like one of those issues, right, that has been galvanizing Democrats. When it came down initially, the Dobbs ruling, we all got the text from Pelosi. I was like, you cynical bitch. And, I think that was the feeling for a little bit of time. And then we saw, basically the opposite happen, that people were like, no, they're fired up, especially women. And the registration of women voters, I know, has been huge. What have you seen in terms of registering women coming out to register to vote?
Yeah, it's pretty wild, just because we've gone through this era since Trump came on the scene 6-7 years ago, where we would see something crazy happen in the news. And I think we'd all look at it and say, well, this has to change things. People are going to look at this and say, we can't have any of that. Humans in cages, people are going to stand up. And then, there's outrage, but the voting doesn't change. And so I think to a certain extent with Dobbs, a lot of us were afraid that we were going to be seeing the same thing, that there'd be a lot of outrage. We'd look around, we'd say, who can save us? Is the White House going to do something? Is Congress going to do something?
No.
The difference here was a realization that in the end, it's going to be on the voters. And, I think everyone's aware of what happened in Kansas. You had that vote in early August in Kansas. It was handpicked by anti-choice Republicans to fail, to remove abortion protections from the state constitution. Yeah. No one was supposed to vote, and it was just, and the pro-choice vote, the no vote, actually wins by almost 20 points. And so we jump in, we look at, well, what happened there? Is this one example where finally something has changed? And 70% of the people who registered to vote in Kansas after the June 24th decision of Dobbs were women. It was 70-30 women, men. You don't see that. That doesn't happen anywhere. It's usually 50-50. If one group is really fired up, it might be, 53-47. It was 70-30. Women were coming out. And then when you look at the actual turnout of who voted, it's women, it's younger voters in general. It was Latino voters, of which there are not a lot in Kansas, but actually, believe it or not, more Latino voters voted in this election than almost any election other than the 2020 presidential election.
Wow.
More young people voted than have voted in any midterm election, than voted in the 2018 general election and in August election. So, when we talk about, is there hope? The hope is that this energy that we're seeing among women, younger voters, voters of color, it's awful that the reason that it exists, but if that energy can carry through over the next 7 weeks,
right,
then you're going to see a very competitive election, and Democrats do have a chance at holding on to the House.
Yeah, I mean, that younger voter thing is huge. In terms of like, you're seeing young people who like are just going to college and then their address is changed, and like a lot of things are stacked against them anyway, and they're registering.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we saw the same thing in 2018, which was the Parkland massacre happens. The March for Our Lives movement starts in, that was February. March for Our Lives, I think, was April. And then you saw the political establishment and the media sort of pat them on the head and say, that's cute, but young people don't vote in midterms. And, we started analyzing it, just like we've been looking at the voter registration with women and younger voters this cycle, and saw something similar, that, well, actually, young people are actually fired up and they're registering to vote. We put an analysis out summer of 2018. Washington Post actually published a rebuttal to our analysis that effectively was the same head pat and saying that's cute, but young people don't vote in midterms. And we all know the story, right? Young people went from 7% of ballots cast in the 2014 midterms to almost 13% of ballots cast in the 2018 midterms. The blue wave doesn't happen if young people don't get out there and vote. And we're seeing even bigger numbers now with younger voters and women. So there is reason to be hopeful. But 7 weeks scares me.
Save us, young people, even though we tease you about being lazy. Please
even though
save us.
You really take TikTok too seriously, and I feel like you guys are the ones cooking chicken and NyQuil, because I saw that story and I was like, that's Gen Z.
Listen,
but
if they save us, I'll eat some NyQuil chicken.
That's a good night's sleep.
I'll eat a Tide Pod. I'll go lick the Bluebell ice cream. Whatever TikTok food chaos you want me to do, I'll do it.
If you save us, I believe that if you survive a mass shooting, you get to vote automatically. Yeah. So that means elementary school kids in Uvalde get the vote.
Yeah,
like that's
that.
just right
They
there.
wouldn't want that.
No, of course they wouldn't, but I just feel like that's, that's my rule. No, I think that's good. And yet it's still going to be hard, like hard going in the House. But what other trends have you guys been? I know TargetSmart specifically kind of filling in these gaps that like you're saying, the narratives are young people don't vote. I mean, the shit that eventually our parents will all regurgitate to us when it doesn't go, the way of the Democrats generally. But what other, and TargetSmart kind of like finds the patterns that other people are missing. What other patterns do you feel like people are missing?
My biggest gripe at this point is the polling that's out there. Y'all were griping about Georgia a little while ago, and I started off this morning doing so. There were polls out there. Front page of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is this big spread, whole above the fold spread, talking about how Republicans are winning in all the statewide races, governor's race. Herschel Walker's winning. They have this new poll with the University of Georgia out, and it's this narrative, right? That they're driving this narrative that is only going to have the effect of depressing turnout from people. And so I look at that poll. Because I always want to know, like, well, what is this based on? I look at the poll, I look at the sample, I'm a nerd. And in the poll sample, they're predicting that Republicans are going to have a 9% larger share of the electorate than Democrats in Georgia. Okay. Even in 2014, when Republicans had a great year in Georgia, it was a 4-point advantage. So they've got this poll out there that says that Republicans are going to double turnout. So I start ranting about that on Twitter, as one does, into the void. And then another poll comes out, another Georgia poll that shows, again, Democrats are losing. And you see Democrats saying, God, we just can't win there. What's going to happen? Well, in that poll, 49% of their respondents in that poll are women. 49%. The lowest woman vote share in Georgia in the last decade has been 55%. So this is a poll saying that if after a Dobbs decision, when women have been robbed of their right to choose and make their own healthcare decisions, women are going to turn out at an all-time low. Sure, if that happens, I guess Republicans might be winning. And so you asked the sort of trends we're looking at. A lot of what we're looking at now is the polling that's out there.
Yeah.
And we're looking at these turnout trends, and we're trying to put them in context so people understand. I don't know who's going to turn out. I don't know exactly what percent of the vote women will make up in Georgia. I know it's not going to be 49%. I know it's not going to be an all-time low. I know that Republicans aren't going to have a 9-point advantage in Georgia. So we're trying to share that information, share some context so people can be a little bit better informed. And hopefully, these media narratives don't drive turnout down because people look at it and say, well, we don't have a chance. I guess Herschel Walker is going to be our next senator.
This is why I don't trust polls. I haven't trusted a poll since 2016. That's it. I just swore off them altogether.
That's fair.
But I'm also like, who is answering these polls? Who is home at like 1 p.m. other than me streaming on a Tuesday, answering the phone, their landline? You know what I mean? Like, it's just all kinds.
I don't answer unknown numbers. Come on.
No one does. I teach a class at Howard University in campaigns. And I asked my students last week, we're covering polling, and I asked them, I said, how many of you have a landline? Of course, none of them have a landline phone. How many of you have a cell phone? Everyone. How many of you answer your phone when it rings and you don't know who it is? Nobody does. So it's problematic. There are some smart pollsters who are doing smart things and using texting and online surveys, but it's the sort of thing that you need to look at. And it's somewhat irresponsible of the media to report on these polls as if they're gospel truth or as if it's a sporting event. It's a football game. Herschel Walker's winning.
Yes.
Well, no, he's winning if you believe that's what turnout's going to look like in Georgia. And by the way, we should tell you turnout has never looked like this in Georgia. Maybe that's important context, but they leave that out.
Yeah. We're actually going to talk about Georgia next week on the show. So I'm curious about that. Cause it felt like Republicans and the media want us to think that 2020 was a fluke, right? Like it's never going to go that way again. And I don't know about that. I feel like, tell voters that their vote was a fluke and they might come out harder the next time. But that's why I just go with my gut on everything. No, not polls.
Very Trumpian.
just my gut. No, and then I do think that in terms of reproductive rights, Lindsey Graham is someone who is like, are you an op, bro? Like, are you working for the Democrats? Because your whole plan to like ban abortion on a national level feels like it's just gonna drive voter turnout. And
Yeah,
even
I said the same thing last week because, you know, Democrats, as we all know, have been talking about if you elect Republicans. I remember being at the LA convention in 2000 and having the West Wing cast coming up to us as we're walking out of the convention hall and telling us, you need to make this race about the Supreme Court and abortion. We got political advice from the cast of the West Wing. So it goes back before that, right? That Democrats have been talking about if you vote for Republicans, they're going to overturn Roe. And the fact of the matter is, we talked about it so much that people stopped believing it. They didn't think it would happen. And then Dobbs happens and they see what's really happening. People say, oh, this is something that we really need to push back against. But you're right. Then Lindsey Graham comes along. Republicans were trying to back down for the last few weeks. They saw what happened in Kansas and they got scared. And you see them all removing all the pro-life stuff from their websites. You see them, Dr. Oz suddenly is not so pro-life anymore.
Right.
And then Lindsey Graham comes along and he files this bill that says, national federal ban after 15 weeks. And you see all the other Republicans giving them the cut sign saying not now.
Yep. Yeah. And I guess anything else that we have like not been paying attention to, or things we should ignore.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably more that you should ignore than anything else. Like, stay, as much as I love Twitter for some things, probably, steer clear for a while. But, I think the other trend that's important to look at is looking at Latino voters, African-American voters, AAPI voters. They delivered, along with younger voters, the victories in 2000, especially in key states like Georgia, Nevada, Arizona.
Yes.
And a big question is, are these voters coming back? There've been a lot of stories out there saying, oh, they're trending Republican, and we're not seeing that in the data. API voters are actually registering at a higher Democratic rate than they were 2 years ago.
Fastest growing voter bloc.
Exactly. And so
I'm gestating one right now. I mean, she's going to be
probably not ready to vote by November, I'm guessing.
No, it's true. I'm trying.
I know a dog in Coffee County that could probably get that baby a voting card. Nice Labrador.
Ask for Rex. Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that, right. I mean, it's all to like build suspense, right? Which we should, let's agree. We should feel like, look, we don't want, the Democrats shouldn't lose the House. That would fucking suck. Herschel Walker and JD Vance should be nowhere near the Senate. The idea that there would be a national abortion ban is very, very real. But at the same time, we're kind of seeing that play out in a lot of states right now in terms of bans on abortion. So the reality is the same. The fight is the same. So anyway, yeah, Tom, anything else, Roy, you're curious about?
No, I think that he's kind of hit the nail on the head. It's very hard to poll young people. We can't even count fucking people in this country. Like every 8 years we go, hey, do you mind if we count you just so we can know how many motherfuckers? And people won't answer the phone. They won't answer the door. They don't trust the census. So I think it's always going to be difficult to get a true approximation of which way, particular voting blocks, are leaning. I will say, from the black side of the game, I do think that, there's a lot more indifference and voter apathy as far as I can tell, just in kind of, I'm no Nate Silver or anything like that, but just in the circles that I swim in, comparing 2016 to now, it's a lot more apathy and a lot more of holding Democrats, feet to the fire. And I don't know if it will be as much of a shoe-in of getting black people back to the polls as much as it was in 2016 or, post Black Lives Matter, going into 2020.
Yeah, especially since that was completely squandered as an issue. I mean, you could talk about student loan debt disproportionately, impacting like Black Americans. We could talk about the, climate bill, helping out communities of color in terms of environmental racism, but that's like niche within like nothing has really happened since the 2020 uprisings when it comes to like federal police reform. We can't get shit passed on that.
I mean, they're reversing body cam shit now. It's illegal to record the police in certain locales now. Well, wait. I thought y'all was supposed to be wearing the body cameras and turning them on. Yeah, we might. Okay, we'll record you just in case. Oh, you're under arrest. What the fuck? What?
Right. To say nothing of the vote, like also another thing that I think the Black community has, I mean, obviously, like historically cared about is voting rights. And that hasn't been enshrined yet. And so we're being told once again, okay, but next election, you know what I mean? Everyone's issues will be taken care of. We're going to codify Roe. We're going to get voting rights. So
I think
TBD.
there is a contingency, and I'm not going to put this on the Black demographic alone, but there is a contingency of voters in this country who are tired of broken promises, and they honestly do not care, and they would be happy on election day to kick back, relax, and stay at home and watch this bitch burn and not care.
Yes. And that is actually literally what Republicans want, is to watch women burn at the stake. That is they're like, that sounds
That's
good.
the 2020. That's 2024. That's not.
That's what they're going to run on. Witches are back. They're real.
Different.
What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.